For generations, the American dream had this simple, almost sacred promise. If you work hard, you can own your own home. It was the foundation of financial security. But today, that promise, well, it feels pretty broken. So let's dive into this housing affordability crisis and really see what's going on.
So, what on earth happened? Seriously, why does that dream of owning a home feel so completely out of reach for so many of us now? It's a question that really gets to the heart of our economic reality today. Well, some analysts have this new term for it, the Great Housing Reset. Now look, this doesn't mean prices are going to crash overnight. The idea is more of a long, slow rebalancing act, where, fingers crossed, our paychecks finally start to catch up with home prices. But before we get to that, we really need to grasp the sheer scale of the problem.
And this number, wow, this is our starting point. We're talking about a record $18.8 trillion in household debt. Trillion! That's the total financial weight on everyone's shoulders, and it really sets the stage for everything else.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's look at the actual math of why this feels so impossible by comparing the past to right now.
Okay, so check this out. This chart tells a pretty crazy story over the last 40 years. Incomes? Yeah, they went up 255%. And that sounds pretty decent, right? But then you look at home prices, a 415% surge. That massive gap, that's the whole problem right there. And this ratio, it shows you exactly what that gap feels like in real life. Back in '85, a house cost about 3.5 times your yearly salary. Totally doable for many. Today, that national average has jumped over 5 times. And if you live in a major city, forget about it. It's almost 10 times in New York and over 12 in Los Angeles. I mean, the goalposts haven't just moved. They're not even in the same sport anymore.
And just look at the raw price tags on this timeline. 82 grand in 1985. Then, boom, it almost triples by 2005. And after the pandemic, prices just went into the stratosphere, landing us at over $410,000 today. It's just a relentless upward climb.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for you today? Nationally, to even afford a typical home, you need to be making over $106,000 a year. But the median income? It's under $84,000. So right there's a huge disconnect. And the cash you need up front, we're not talking small change. You need like $35,000 to $40,000 in cash just to squeak by with a minimum down payment. And if you want to avoid paying extra mortgage insurance with a 20% down payment, you better have over $100,000 just sitting in the bank. I mean, who has that? So all of this begs the question, how in the world did we get here? And the answer really boils down to an economy that's just completely fueled by debt.
All right, let's circle back to that massive $18.8 trillion number. Look at this chart. Of course, mortgages are the giant slice of the pie at over $13 trillion. But don't just skim over the other pieces. Student loans and car loans are each over $1.6 trillion, and credit card debt is climbing fast. These aren't just numbers. They are huge monthly bills that just drain your ability to save. It's like you're paying this permanent tax on the future before you can even begin to think about a down payment.
And to really get to the why of all this, we have to talk about this kind of wonky term, financialization. But it's actually a really simple idea. It's when a house stops being just a home for a family and starts being treated like a financial asset, like a stock or a bond, to be traded on global markets. And that means when you're trying to buy a house, you're not just up against other families anymore. You're often up against massive, multi-billion-dollar investment funds.
Yeah, and this quote from the Transnational Institute really hits the nail on the head. They call it a radical transformation. And it is. In this new world, the price of a house isn't about what a local family can afford. It's about what some distant investor thinks they can get as a return. And that has changed, well, basically everything.
So, okay, how does all this big picture economic stuff actually hit us at home? Well, it's created what you could call a generational triple trap. And it's happening alongside this insane wealth shift. Get this. Americans under 40 are nearly 37% of the population, but we own less than 5% of the nation's wealth. This isn't just a housing problem anymore. It's a full-blown generational crisis. Let's look at the human cost.
And this trap is just a brutal 3-punch combo. First, your paycheck just doesn't buy what it used to after you account for inflation. Second, rent is so astronomically high, it eats up any chance of saving. And third, millions of us are starting our adult lives already buried under a mountain of student loan debt.
I mean, think about it. If your actual wages only go up by 18% over 4 decades, but the cost of, well, everything skyrockets, what do? How do you cope? You turn to credit cards, to loans. Debt basically becomes the thing that bridges the gap between the income you have and the life you need to live, which just makes saving for a house even more of a fantasy.
And speaking of costs, let's talk about rent. This number is just wild. In New York City, an average 3-bedroom apartment is over $8,300 a month. That's almost $100,000 a year gone just to keep a roof over your head. Is it any wonder that more than half of young Americans are now living with their parents? It's not a choice, it's an economic necessity. And all that money is just vanishing instead of building a future.
And that brings us to the final piece of the trap: student loans. The latest numbers show that over 16% of this debt is seriously delinquent. We're talking 90 days or more late. And you know what that does? It torches your credit score. And with a trashed credit score, getting a mortgage is practically impossible. The door to homeownership just gets slammed shut in your face before you even get a chance to knock. Wow. So yeah, that's a pretty bleak picture, isn't it? So the question is, what happens now? Are we just stuck? Or is it time to start redefining what the dream even is? So what can be done? Well, people are starting to talk about some real solutions. One big idea is just building more houses. Getting rid of old zoning rules that stop construction could help bring prices down by increasing supply. Another idea is to stop making it so easy for huge corporations to buy up all the houses. Maybe give regular families a first look so they have a fighting chance. The goal here is to try and level the playing field. It's complicated for sure, but at least these conversations are finally happening.
So that leaves us with the ultimate question. Is that old-school American dream of owning a home over? Or are we just going through this incredibly painful process of redefining it for a totally new economic reality? Because if things don't change, we're heading towards a future where homeownership isn't earned but inherited, and a life of debt becomes the default setting for almost everyone else.